Hey guys, it's Darwin, and for some reason I've been getting a ton of questions about the clothes that I hike in. So today we're talking about some of my favorite hiking duds and the clothes that I'll be basically living in next year on the AT, the GDT, and the CT. So before we jump into the video, I gotta start off by saying, yes, we're talking about hiking clothes, which can be kind of silly, and honestly, it is subjective. Now, all the clothes that I'm talking about today won't necessarily make my hike better or worse, and honestly, a pair of shorts or a shirt or a jacket from the Goodwill or some other thrift store would work just as good. However, these are just some of my favorite hiking clothes that I've kind of dialed everything down to of what I like when I'm on the trail. And also keep in mind that somebody like me is going to be wearing these for thousands of miles in a year versus somebody else that might just be going out for a weekend backpacking trip. So because some of these items can be expensive, if you're not looking to get into that, I have put some budget options down below in the description box, so definitely check those out. All that being said, lately people have been obsessed with some of the new things that I've been wearing in my videos, over on my Instagram account, and just generally on the trail while I'm hiking. So I figured it was time to do an update video talking about the clothes that I've been currently wearing and the clothes that I'll be living in next year on the Appalachian Trail, Great Divide Trail, and the Colorado Trail. Now, if for some reason you didn't hear that big announcement of the trails that I'll be doing next year, I'll put that video up here if you want to check that out. So if you've been following along on the channel for a while now, you know that one of my favorite all-time hiking shirts is the Columbia Silver Ridge Light. It's been in a bunch of my gear list. I've put tons of miles on those shirts over the past couple years on the trail. Whenever you get to about 1,000 miles, the shirt starts to kind of stretch out and shrink at the same time. And if you're a tall, thin guy like me, they start to feel like a blouse. And it's not the most comfortable thing. A good example is if you check out this photo from my finish of the TGO Challenge this year, you'll see that it looks pretty big and weird. So because of that, I've just been searching for a better shirt, something that was a little more form-fitting, that didn't shrink really weird, something that had a little bit of a stretch to it, and a shirt that has snap buttons. I'm a big fan of snap buttons. I don't really know why, but I am. So recently I picked up a new shirt, which is the Arc'teryx Skyline long sleeve shirt. It's more form-fitting, it has snap buttons, there's a little bit of a stretch to the fabric. However, some of the downsides of the shirt are it doesn't have that vent on the back like the Columbia Silver Ridge, and it is quite an expensive shirt. If you pick this up at regular price, they're usually like $100. However, I did find this on sale and got it much cheaper. So far, I've been digging it, and this is basically the shirt that I'm gonna be living in next year for a couple thousand miles. Next up are my shorts of choice. Now, I am a shorts guy. I'm not a big fan of pants when it comes to hiking, if you haven't noticed, but my short of choice, and it has been now for about, well, 3 years, is the Nike Challenger shorts. So these are the 5-inch inseam with pockets, which is why I'm a massive fan. So they have the pockets, they have a liner on the inside of them, and they also have vents on the side, if I can find them. They have a vent running down both sides, so they're a little more breathable on trail. I actually ended up picking up 3 pairs of these about 2 years ago, and I'm still using them. I haven't had to replace them, and they work out great. Now, the next article of clothing should come as no surprise to anybody, and it's something I refuse to hike without, and that is my buff. Now, unfortunately, this is not my original buff that I've had for years, that I've used on a lot of trails. I finally had to retire that thing because it's just getting sad and old and had holes in it. The big difference between this one and my old one is this is a UPF rated buff, which is cool because if I'm hiking in the desert or some sort of exposed ridgeline, I can kind of tuck this up into my hat and have kind of like a makeshift sunshade, which I did a lot on the Arizona Trail this year. So a buff is something I will never hike without, and I highly suggest getting one if you don't have one. All right, and then the last piece of clothing that I'm always going to be wearing no matter what the situation, no matter what the weather, is obviously a pair of socks, and my sock of choice is the Darn Tough light cushion merino sock. And I like them because they keep my feet dry when it is hot outside, but they also keep my feet warm when it's cold outside. They have some venting on the top, and the reason that I always go with Darn Tough is Darn Tough has a lifetime warranty on their socks, which means if you wear a pair of these out, all you gotta do is send them into Darn Tough or go into a retailer that sells Darn Tough and you can trade them out for a brand new pair. So basically, I have not bought a brand new pair of Darn Tough in about 3 years, which is pretty awesome and a great investment. So sorry guys, there's no budget option down below for these because I think that a good pair of socks that you can replace over and over again is definitely worth the investment. All right, so aside from a mesh back hat that I always have on my head, that's basically the clothes that I'll always be wearing no matter the conditions. I will always have that shirt, those shorts, those socks, that buff on. That's just kind of my, I guess, trail uniform that I'm always wearing. But one thing that I wanted to mention that I've been hiking in a lot lately, and that is my Appalachian Gear Company alpaca wool sweater. Well, it's not alpaca wool, but it is an alpaca fiber. Now, there are a lot of different popular fleece sweaters and hoodies out on the market that a lot of hikers use. And to be honest, I've never been a big fan of the more popular ones like the Melanzana hoodie, but I picked this guy up just because I was looking for a good hoodie to wear when it got chillier outside, and I've absolutely fallen in love with it. So it has nice, comfy long sleeves. It has a really great comfy hood, and it's a lot longer of a cut. So one of the reasons that I'm not a big fan of the Melanzana sweaters is because they kind of have a little bit of a boxier cut, and again, I'm a long torso guy. Well, this sweater is longer in the back, so when I'm wearing a pack, if I'm wearing a jacket, it doesn't pull up and expose my back. Now, this hoodie is a bit heavier than some of the other ones on the market. I think mine in a small weighs in at 8 ounces. So that is quite a bit heavier than some other ones out there. However, for me, it's totally worth it because I can use it at night in camp, I can hike in it during the day, and because it's antimicrobial and I'm not gonna stink, I can wear it in town when I get to town to do my laundry. So definitely worth the wait for me. A little expensive, but again, it's all in what you want. All right, so like I explained earlier, I'm not a big fan of pants. I never have been. So one thing that I've been using over the last handful of years is a pair of hiking tights. So for me, being able to take my shorts that I'm always wearing and then putting a pair of tights under them is essentially creating pants and giving me that extra warmth on my legs or extra protection if it's super windy outside. So I used to carry a pair of tights called the Nike Hyperwarm tights. I absolutely loved those things. However, they are quite thick, and over time I kind of felt like I only really used them in the early morning, and then they kind of became overkill when the sun started coming out and it started warming up. So recently I made the switch over to a pair of Patagonia Capilene lightweight tights. Now, the reason I made the switch is because for me, these are a little more comfortable to sleep in, and I can hike in them in the morning, and if it gets even chillier, I can pair these with a pair of wind pants. So these are the Enlightened Equipment copper-filled wind pants that I've been using for about a year now, and these tights paired with these wind pants weighs less than my old tights that I used to carry on the trail. So again, for me, this makes a little more sense because it's a little more universal. If it's chilly but not too windy in the morning, I can just wear these. If it's a little bit windier, I can wear these. 2 pieces of gear, multifunction for less weight than what I used to carry. This is what I'm gonna be carrying most of the time on the trail, but next year I am gonna be hiking some trails that I expect to have a lot of rain, which is the Great Divide Trail and the Colorado Trail. So in that instance, I will be switching out my wind pants for a pair of rain pants. Yep, Darwin said rain pants. For years, I've said I'm not a fan of rain pants. I would never carry rain pants. However, I did pick up a pair of these Z-Packs Virtus rain pants before heading over to Scotland in May, and the couple times that I wore them, I actually enjoyed wearing them. And my thoughts are, if I'm going to be wearing a pair of wind pants anyways, I might as well get a little bit of extra water protection, so I have picked these up. If you haven't noticed, most of the clothing that I'm using is pretty versatile, and I can add things and take things away to create different layering systems depending on the weather that I'm in. Whether it's cold, Whether it's hot, whether it's wet, or whether it's dry, this close setup is really good for just about all the environments that I typically hike in. So the next things that are going to be in my pack are for cold weather. And number one is going to be the pair of gloves that I typically carry on the trail with me. Now, I'm not a big fan of big, bulky gloves because my hands do get warm pretty quickly. So the gloves that I've really dug over the last handful of years are the Mountain Hardwear Power Stretch gloves. They're kind of like a liner. They're not super heavy, but they do have a Polartec fleece on the inside. They have some grip in the hand, so if I'm using a trekking pole, they're good for that. And they also have that little power tap thing on the fingers, so I can still use my gut hook app while I'm on the trail. So those are my gloves of choice, and in the instance that it gets even colder, I need a little bit of extra protection. I do carry an extra pair of darn tough socks that, believe it or not, I just kind of slip over these so they act like mittens. And then the last thing before I get to my outer layers is my beanie. For years, I've used a hand-knitted beanie that a friend of mine made, but I'm finally going to retire it because it's starting to get a little worn out. And instead, just like my sweater, I picked up an Appalachian Gear Company alpaca beanie. It's super lightweight, it packs down real small, it's antimicrobial, so if my head stinks, this won't stink, and it's just comfy. So nice lightweight beanie that I'll also keep in my pack to wear sometimes when it's chilly in the morning and to sleep in. All right guys, the last two things are my jackets. Now typically these are always going to be in my pack unless it's super cold in the morning or if it's raining. Now number one should come as no surprise to anyone, and that is my favorite thermal jacket that I've been using for a couple years now on the trail, and that is the Enlightened Equipment Torrid Apex jacket. It's synthetic, it weighs about 7 ounces, just a little bit over. It has a hood, it has pockets. I love this jacket. I won't get too far into it because I've talked a lot about it over the last couple years, but if you don't know anything about it, you want to find out a little more information, I'll put my 3,000 plus mile review that I did last year up here, so go check that video out. So this is what I usually put on over everything else. You know, if it's chilly in the morning, I'll put this on first, and then if it gets a little colder, I'll put this on to give myself a little bit of extra warmth. But if it is rainy or I want to add another layer from the wind, from the cold, that's when I'm going to use my rain jacket. And the rain jacket of choice that I've been using for the past couple years is the Z-Pax Virtus rain jacket. It has pit vents, it's super lightweight, it comes in at like 5 ounces. It does pack down in its front zipper pocket. Now it doesn't have any side pockets, but it has that front zipper pocket, which is nice because if I need to protect my phone from the rain, I can put that in there. And one of the reasons it's my favorite jacket so far to date is because of the cut of it. Again, I'm a tall, thin, slender guy, and this jacket tends to have a longer cut and falls down longer in the back so things don't ride up if I have my pack on me. It breathes really well and it takes a long time for it to wet out. Again, it is an expensive jacket and I have put a budget option to that down below if you want to check that out. But that's basically it, guys. That is all the clothes that I'll be wearing for all the miles that I'll be hiking next year on the AT, on the GDT, and the CT. And like I said, it's all subjective. This is just the stuff that I like and the stuff that I know that's gonna hold up for me over 2,000 miles next year. Use what makes you comfortable and what you like out on the trail because that is the main important thing. So what are some of your favorite hiking duds to use out on the trail? Leave me something down below and let us know your thoughts. If you found any value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always guys, thanks for watching.